Ihr hört den Babacast, ein Podcast von Bababuk.
Alrighty, ich könnte mir keinen besseren Gast für die erste Episode wünschen. Ne? Sascha ist gebürtige Moskauerin und arbeitet aktuell im russischen Bildungs- und Kultur- bzw. Kunstbereich. Letztes Jahr nahm sie an der großen Moskauer Demo gegen die Inhaftierung des Politikers Alexej Nawalny teil. Und wir sprechen eben zum einen über Nawalny, über die Symbolkraft seiner versuchten Ermordung und Inhaftierung, über den Alltag in Russland als jemand, der zum einen gegen den Strom denkt und sich eben auch nicht davor fürchtet, der Wahrheit in vielen Dingen ins Auge zu sehen. Wir sprechen über das Jahr 2021, welches vermutlich in die Geschichte eingehen wird als das Jahr, in welchem die letzten Weichen gestellt wurden, um das Leben für Menschen wie Sascha in Russland nachhaltig schwer zu machen. Ich habe vor lauter Aufregung, weil erste Episode, Sascha nicht anständig begrüßt, also hole ich es nach. Sasha, I was, I am, and I always will be excited for our conversations. Thank you for taking the time and coming on my show. And to all my listeners, enjoy. Thank you so much for coming on my podcast, Sasha.
Thank you for the invitation.
So, Aleksandra Grishina is a former journalism and international affairs student from Moscow, and she's currently working at Teach for Russia.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
And so Sasha and we met, I think it's almost 10 years ago. It has to be 2013 in a small German town called Lörrach. Because back then we were both into theater. And as far as I remember, you came to Lörrach because we organized a international theater festival. And back then you were still in high school. And
high school, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you were playing. Was it school theater or was it like an independent group?
It was, I would say it was an independent group.
All right. So then I also remember we had many different countries, also China. Like the whole festival opened with a Chinese opera, which was amazing. Yeah. And I also remember that you were kind of unique because you were the only one in your group that was very, or like the most approachable one, I would say. So very open and also interested in getting to know the other actors, which was great because I think that's the whole purpose of doing a international festival. And then we kind of stayed in touch, mainly through Instagram. And as it happens through Instagram, I was able to kind of stalk you the past years and to see how you went abroad for, I think, was it 1 year?
Yeah, I've had 1 year of exchange in the States as a sophomore, and that was amazing.
Yes. And then I also saw that you were working at but you were participating in this UN Model Nations thing.
Yeah, and that's right? Some extracurricular activity I was into when I was a student modeling United Nations. That was a very inspiring thing to do. I mean, I gained a lot of skills, but above all, I was full of that energy that changes are actually possible, and we learn step by step how the changes are implemented in international organizations. And that was, I would say, more valuable experience that my whole studying experience. Honestly,
that sounds great in one way and also kind of sad in another.
Yeah.
Yes. But I think we would talk about that as well, because you already told me a bit about how, let's say, university culture or academia in at least in Moscow was like. So maybe we can also speak about that a bit. And then, well, the reason we really got in touch with each other again was that I saw you again on Instagram, that you were participating in a huge demonstration in Moscow. Correct me if I'm wrong. After Nawalny, Alexej Nawalny, I think is his name, like the full one. After where he got poisoned first, and then he got treated in Germany, and after coming back to Russia, he got admitted into a prison. And afterwards, there were the protests. And is it correct?
Yeah. Basically, that's this storyline. I don't know. When I recall it, it was 2020 when he was poisoned, and I still remember like the terror of those. I don't know, a couple of days when we were just following the news and every new development. And we were just so scared that he was going literally like to die in front of our eyes. And because of the whole media and social media experience, it's basically getting very, very close. And you can literally follow every minute of it. And many of us felt so desperate and so useless simply watching and reading how it is all happening. And we were just so happy that he was taken abroad and that he was taken to Germany, and that he raised from the dead and recovered. And the same shock and terror, well, not to the same, I would say something like that we've experienced when he announced that he's going back to Russia, which of course was madness, but he is so he sticks to his principles and he goes back because this is where he belongs, even though I'm pretty sure he could choose and stay in Germany, and his family would only support and love that decision, but he was going back, and we were all following very closely his airplane, the airplane he took on the flight radar. We were just so scared that something happens to like the plane itself in the air. And then it landed in different airport because they wouldn't want him to see the huge crowd that gathered, and journalists rushed to another airport through the whole city. And then he was taken right in the airport, and pretty soon he
to
was
prison right at the airport.
Yeah.
Oh.
So he was separated with his wife, and he was taken right at the customs, and and then he was arrested and imprisoned, and he was facing the real trial, which he is now under. And there were pretty big protests across Russia and especially in Moscow, and they were very cruel in terms of response. And
you mean from the police?
Yeah, from the authorities and the police, and those temporary custodies, right? They were just packed with people. Like they were not prepared for thousands and thousands of people detained. And they just wouldn't know where to put them. And people were even taken outside of Moscow simply because all of Moscow prisons were packed with the protesters. And that was the beginning of 2021. And soon enough, Nawalny is in prison for at least 3 years for now. And a major part of his supporters has left or in prison too. And now we have no protests in Russia anymore. That's a long story short.
Yeah.
And that was when you texted me because of Nawalny and because of the protests that were going on in Moscow.
Right, because I thought that she's there. From whom could I get a better, just overview about what is going on exactly, also in the country itself, because it's easy to read news articles about Russia or about the protests from, let's say, Germany or the UK or America, but you are there, you are Russian, you have a different, I think, insight into what is happening, because you can see it with your own eyes. And I can only, because when you said before that just seeing what happened to him, like first the poisoning and then him coming back, getting into prison, the terror you felt, because I am by no means very knowledgeable about Russian politics, but to me, what I perceived of from Nawalny was this very anti-establishment figure, and then also a figure. So he's also a figure of hope in a way for the people who are critical of the government, for example. And then you lose your one figure of hope, or like your projection of change also.
And in such an inhuman way. I mean, being poisoned somewhere in Siberia, in the hospital, and the very fact that he survived was exclusively because the pilot landed the plane, that they landed it as soon as they knew that someone is in trouble on the plane. So if the pilots decided something different, or if they decide to land it a bit later, well, he would have died. And it's out of question, because that was the plan, that he would be in the air and no one will help him. And the ambulance which arrived at the airport, and well, of course, they were not those paid or feared people in the hospital which were awaiting him. They were like ambulance people, and their only concern was to rescue a person. I guess they did some kind of antidote to him, and that saved his life. So these are just small things that happen, small coincidence, and that is the only reason he survived. And that was like a real mental torture to watch and to read, and we still remember those days. And that was just, I guess, it left a huge mark on us, and we can still feel it. And that's I would never forget, and I would never want to try again. Yeah, and of course he is a symbol of hope. Since he's the only leader of opposition in Russia, even though he used to be a questionable figure back in the times.
So just out of curiosity, because now we're kind of getting into a good topic or question, because as I said, I am by no means very knowledgeable about Russian politics. So I always get this picture like there is the government and opposition, and kind of, I cannot really pinpoint the maybe different shades of it. I don't know. So maybe, and I guess I'm not the only one who feels like that listening to this. So could you explain a bit what kind of person he is? Maybe also what he stands for, what he symbolizes for the people in Russia who support him, so that we could get a better picture of, just like the character.
Yeah, well, of course, it's only in my humble opinion. And for me, he, across the years, he used to be the only actual leader of opposition in Russia, the only one who tried to unite people and to call them to action, let's say. the problem with Russia, well, there are many problems, and geographical problem. I mean, the vastness of the country and and how different it is in the regions, and how Moscow is different from the regions of Russia. That's just one big topic. The other thing is that, well, our history is torn apart, and we are a very young country with very young political system and political situation, and there is still this huge shade of Soviet Union over us. And there is also a problem with, therefore, there is a problem with the opposition, which is still very Moscow. So it's not like a grassroots movement from the regions, which are basically Russia. The leaders of the opposition are usually like Muscovites or Moscow, St. Petersburg. Well, they may be very far away from the actual lives of the people, and they're not united. They always find something to argue about, even though we are so far away from any success that you would think, well, you guys can forget about those little differences for the moment and concentrate on a bigger issue. But
Yeah.
it never happened. Yeah, and Navalny, he was a questionable figure, I guess, before he nearly faced his death. And when in 2018 he ran for president against Putin, well, that was a very brave step. And well, of course, he never even got his name on the papers, and they never allowed him to be the actual candidate, even though he did everything officially and formally and met all the requirements. But still, well, they just refused him to be the candidate.
But wasn't there also an election where he actually got a lot of votes?
Yeah, that was before that, when he was running for the mayor in Moscow. Yeah, and he got, I guess, third of the votes. I don't remember. I mean, it's so ridiculous. Even speaking of it now from 2000, well, already 22, because it all sounds incredible. Like he was really, like there was some candidates not from the ruling party, etc. That's just very different from the situation we're in. So he was running for the president, and there were many talks, I remember, in 2018 that, well, he may get himself on the list, but people will think twice before voting for him, because there are still some things they disagree, etc. And
why is he questionable, by the way? Or why would you say he's
He's very, like, he's not. Like that's just his style, I guess. Rhetorically, I mean, he's straightforward, and he may, I don't know, make bold comparisons. And I remember he used to be like pro-nationalist when he was starting his political career. But I'm pretty sure he dropped this part of his views as the time passed, and regretted about it. So, long story short, people were still unsure whether he is a good candidate for the president, as if we could even decide on that and choose him. But after what happened with the poisoning, and after, like, we nearly saw his death online in Omsk, in Siberia, like literally worst place to die. It's just a horrible story. And when he resurrected in Germany, well, I mean, that's true, that was a resurrection.
Yes.
This is when he became a symbol of, I guess he stopped being a symbol of hope simply because there is left by now, especially with him being imprisoned. But he became a symbol of like outrageous courage.
Mm-hmm.
And this
Also
is
coming back
something,
to Russia, right? After
yeah,
being poisoned, coming back to Russia,
yeah,
probably also
even though
expecting that something else would happen, prison or another
I'm pretty
poisoning.
sure he knew, and his wife knew, and they were literally flying him to prison. I'm pretty
Yes.
sure that was the actual state of things, and yeah, and how he keeps to his principles, and how bold he is, and how like incredibly optimistic he still is. I mean, he still keeps posting from prison. Well, not himself, of course, but he
Mm.
is sending texts. I mean, these are not just texts. It's like the whole, prison prose about what's happening to him there, and how he imagines it all and conceptualizes it all, and it's just like with every new post we're like, oh, he is impossible. Like he's still making fun of it, he makes jokes, and he's like still looking forward to the best. And this is, well, yeah, he's just relentless. And
Wow.
yeah, and as the
How is it
previous,
possible, by the way, to post from prison? Doesn't he? Is he allowed to have a phone?
yeah, of course he's not. So I guess he just writes a text on paper, and then
Mm-hmm.
when he meets his lawyer, he passes this paper to him, which is
Mm.
allowed, I suppose,
Yeah.
since he's also able to reply to letters, and he sends incredible letters to his wife, etc. And then his social media accounts were, long before everything happened, they were, let's say, shared with his team, because he used to be in prison quite often. Well, in a different prison on different charges, not that
Mm.
severe as the ones he's facing today. So many times his social media accounts were taken by his colleagues, and they were still posting under his name. Yeah, and that's something you do. I mean, when my friend, one of my closest friends, was arrested in, well, the previous year, 2021. This
Uh,
is when, yeah, yeah, I can shed light upon it a bit later. It's just a small thing.
okay.
Well, you after that, I realized how important it is to check your privacy settings in Facebook, for instance, and I allowed other people to post on my timeline, even though I would never allow that if I lived in another country. But
Mm-hmm.
when you are arrested, or when something bad happens to you, you better have your privacy settings loosen, so that people can actually post and tell your friends for you what's happening. That's just the point, that we are opening up our privacy settings on one hand and restricting them on another, so that we are more
Ah,
safe, yeah, in terms of our messengers, for instance,
yes.
but we are safer to be told about,
Mm-hmm.
for instance, on Facebook.
Yes. So is it then, because you said messengers, do you use Telegram
Yeah, of
or?
course. Telegram is a huge relief, and for me, that's really the best thing invented by a Russian. I don't know, in the new millennium, because yeah, Telegram. Well, I know that many countries survive with Telegram.
Yeah.
Iran, for instance, Russia. Yeah, we try not to use WhatsApp since it's not very safe,
Yeah.
and Russian social media are under control, and they can give out the info about you on like any day. So Telegram is useful and safe and
Mm.
and very convenient.
I mean, I'm just asking because I don't know how the story developed, but I do remember that our new government wanted to ban Telegram because they said there were too many like protests against restrictions organized and over there and whatever hate speech and whatnot. But then again,
Mhm.
I see on the other hand, as you said, some countries would not survive without being secured like that. So I don't know how the story developed, as I said, but I think your story is a good example for why it is important to have this kind of privacy, despite all the odds.
That's a huge controversy around Telegram, since it's safe and it's free and people can use it without fear. Of course, it is also being used by hate groups, by terrorists, and that's the major concern about Telegram, that it is actually a platform for terrorists too, for instance. For if someone wants to plan something, there are many features on Telegram which allows you to do so. It can erase your messages like in a second. It may erase it on both sides. There are secret chats which are encrypted like on so many levels, etc. So, and I guess that's something Telegram is still working on in terms of its brand, its positioning, that they are safe and they're free, but they're trying their best not to become a platform for something evil.
Yes,
and that's difficult.
It is.
Sorry,
you go ahead.
Yeah, if you want to control like the other part of it, you will have to do something about the initial idea of the Telegram. Well, that's just a complicated dilemma.
And I just wanted to add that you could say you don't want terrorists or terrorist groups on your platform, but then again, it would be easy to declare Nawalny a terrorist as well, if you want to, in a way, because there are also like political interests involved in declaring that, I think. So that's or at least not because he is one, but because it would be like a label, and then he would or his whole movement or group would be banned from Telegram. So it's kind of hard to have good standards for this kind of app, I think.
Yeah, that's right. But that's something we use on daily basis, and so many things are still possible simply because we have like the basic means of communication. And it's mind-blowing that like what would have happened without it. I mean, we still have Telegram. That's still good news.
Yeah. You're also joking about we tried to record this podcast for I think 2 times at least, and there was one time where you were joking and said like, no, they didn't ban Anchor yet, so it shouldn't be this shouldn't be the problem why it's not working.
Yeah. Well, it's still not China or Korea, where we would have to use VPN on any occasion. No, internet is still a free space, but it may be a dangerous space in terms of Russian-owned websites or Russian social media. I erased myself from Russian social media. I used to be on quite often before, but since we know that they're actually helping the authorities and they give information, there is no trust.
Oh wow! So would it be like a Russian social media version of Facebook, and the government asks them to give information about you, and they just
the private one, messages, chats, like text, everything. Yeah, and the cool story about it is that the founder of Russian social media is actually the founder of Telegram. So he dropped the social media thing, even though he was like super rich and super important and famous in Russia. He dropped it when Russian authorities basically came to him at one point and said that, well, you better work for us and you better make it convenient for us because, well, there are millions of people on your platform and we want to be in control of that. And he decided to leave it because he knew that it would inevitably happen and he cannot be the one who allows it. And instead he invented Telegram, which is like a beautiful shift in his career. And a beautiful, so that's one guy.
That's a cool story though.
It is,
Just
yeah.
the fact that he did not want to compromise on his, let's say, principles, he just invented a new platform, which doesn't make it possible to have those compromises in a way.
Yeah, and
That's
he left
great.
Russia as well, of course.
Of course. Wow. So, though it's quite the thing to hear from people who stay principled under such pressure, I think. Like, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And who find other ways to, like, not to just go along with the flow, because that's always easier, right? You could just say, okay, yeah, fine, I will just give you the information you want to and keep all my wealth and social standing and no troubles. But then to take the difficult but right path is a good character, I think.
Yeah, there are many ethical challenges for those who are born Russians and live in Russia now. And the way how, well, our choices, the choices we make, and the principles we stick to, I guess, yeah, they speak more of us than anything by now. Because these are, for me, these are very black and white times, especially after 2021, which was like the most hopeless year in terms of politics, freedom, and hope, yeah, in Russia as it is. Now for us, uh, one of not so many advantages of living in Russia is that we know very well what is good and what is evil, and we can identify it very clearly, and we have no like additional questions to it. It's like, a fairy tale plot. You know very well who is bad and who is good, and
who's the evil queen?
yeah,
King.
Well, in life, we usually don't live in such circumstances.
Yes.
Life is always this huge gray area of ethics and human traits and etc. In Russia, for now, we feel like we know exactly what good is and what evil is, and that, well, this darkest hour, it's getting kind of long, and it's getting darker and darker. But yeah, I might sound a bit depressive for now because 2021 was literally the worst year we've seen so far. We have no like active opposition left. Many people fled the country. Many people are under arrest. Media are shut down or proclaimed international agents, foreign agents, right? Foreign agents.
Yes.
And therefore they face many difficulties financially and in terms of promotion. Even people themselves, some of them are proclaimed foreign agents, and they face many obstacles while trying to communicate. And so generally, hope hit the bottom, I guess. Those people who always thought that they would be better off in Russia, and there are so many things to do, and I mean, such a beautiful, rich country, and they love Russia so much. Many of them are now thinking that it's time to leave because it doesn't feel like there is any hope for fast developments not fast, in foreseeable future, let's say.
Yes.
Maybe even in our generation, who knows?
Also, like, if you get this feeling that there is no, like, what is the war you could fight? What is the war to win? Especially if you lost your, like, the main character of the whole movement. It is, and I guess that's also the reason why governments target those kinds of people, because they also know that the supporters will be absolutely demoralized, and all the people who think about or did think about joining some kind of movement like that, or even being ahead of the movement, they get scared and they won't do it. So it's like this huge demoralization of the people who are actually willing to change something.
Yeah, of course, and it sends the message. You target one person, you hit hundreds and or thousands, like depending on how well known he or she is. And I think we are still in the process of processing how what kind of trauma we're getting by it. It's not like your life is physically, but this everyday informational hostility you're in, well, it definitely leaves the mark, and it's still something we will have to explore and to get a name for it, because it's not like an open, clear situation of a war or a revolution or even repressions. I mean, they still cover it as if they care about our safety. But this is some kind of a trauma we are clearly getting every day, and we're still it's still up for us to identify what it is and what kind of long-lasting effect it has on us.
We spoke before recording the podcast, and I think you made a very good, decent comparison. Do you remember the Dostoevsky one?
Yeah.
So
the Dostoevsky situation is a very relevant situation, referring to Crime and Punishment, when like you are not getting the actual sign that something will happen to you, like that you'll be arrested or sued or anything, but you have a feeling that it will happen. And this is even worse than the actual action towards you. For instance, my friend was arrested for recording a video. She was, and she still is, one of the editors of Doxa journal, and 4 of them are under house arrest for more than 200 days, and there still will be till April, so the whole year under house arrest.
What kind of journal is that, the one you mentioned?
It's a student journal called Doxa, and 4 of those guys recorded a video before the protests in January, simply stating that when students are when students are facing threats at their universities from university officials, that they will be kicked out.
If they participate in the protests.
Yeah, if they participate in protests, because students are one of the driving force. They simply proclaim that this is not right, and officially they have no rights to say that, so you may be sure that you can go in the streets. That's okay. For that video, my friend was arrested a few months later, in the morning, by 10 people in her own apartment.
By 10 people?
10 people, yeah, and one small girl. That's scary, yeah. And for us, for me, that was the most personal dividing line which has happened in 2021. Because, that was my closest friend, and she still is.
Yes.
And I try to visit her and to support her as I can. But it got way too close. And a couple of months, then I spent in a desperate mood, expecting, like, literally every night that this may happen to me as well, because you never know what will happen. You don't even know if there should be any reason for that. It may happen long after something has happened, or someone noticed something, or you were mentioned somewhere. So there are they don't even
something you can't control in a way too, right? Because you it's kind of this possibility of something happening, but you cannot really also pinpoint the let's say the
time and place. That
yes,
would be convenient.
and also your own action, which could lead then to, for example, the arrestment. It's just like they could also like find something to make it seem reasonable enough to arrest you through some, I don't know what kind of charges they brought up against your friends, for example, but this
Involvement of the underage. Yeah, that was
what was
the actual involvement of the underage in the protest.
What kind of charge? What kind of charge is that?
That's a criminal charge.
And involvement of the under. Oh, so that they accused her of involving minors in a way.
Yeah, in the protest, as if some school children watched the video too and then went on the streets, which of course is not true. But that's a criminal charge, and we all hope. Yeah.
Interesting charge, though. I'm just trying to figure out whether we have a similar charge in Germany, because involving minors, I always think about like any sexual misconduct, for example. But then nothing political.
It's always easy to refer to minors, to children, while inventing a charge against somebody, because when it comes to kids, we're like, whoa.
Everybody wants to protect them, so let's just do anything that protects them, even if it's that's true. Also because kids themselves can speak for themselves, really, and say, I did this out of my own accord or something, because they are still kids, and you don't have the same standards for them as for adults, so it's easy to use them for your purposes in a way. Yeah, I get that. Wow. So, I mean, I'm still, I told you many times by now, but I'm still so amazed by also your courage to just to tell this whole story, and to speak so openly about it, and also telling me about your friends, and also your very personal experience, because I mean you're 1 year younger than me, and I have never faced such fear or desperation or
thank goodness it's not a necessary experience in one's lifetime, I suppose. And we all like to say, like me and my friends, that that will be a magnificent experience for our future art. But
yes,
we would still like to get to the point make art fearlessly. You can act in a resourceful state of mind to produce art, because for now, of course, we may not even think about such reinterpretations of our emotional experiences.
Yes, definitely. And I also think that if you navigate through this, let's say, period of your life, you are basically good for the rest of it. So you will be very resilient, I think, towards future.
Let's hope. And thank you so much for your sweet words. It's just when I think about like the courage and like all of those big words for me, of course, when it comes to the actual protests and things happening on the streets, like for now in Kazakhstan, well, this is when you feel like, well, people have courage. When it comes to the point when no such actions are simply allowed, as it is for now in Russia, like we haven't had any protests after February 2021, I suppose. Well, we had one huge protest when Nawalny nearly died in prison when he was on a hunger strike, but that was literally the last one, and we were just on that point when, well, we cannot allow him to die again, so we
Yes.
go out. After that, nothing, like nothing. Even in summer, I mean, it's not very easy to protest in winter, though people still do it. Summer is a beautiful time to go out in the streets, but no, nothing. And it's just this point about courage. I guess it's not only about the actual open events, but it also takes courage for me and for many of my friends to simply live in such in such bipolar reality. On one hand, we have like our life together. We live in comfortable apartments, like we live in big cities. We are in one of the most, let's say, culturally educated capitals in the world, and Moscow is a very comfortable city as itself. So it's a good life on one hand. On the other, it is constant political atrocities which are happening near you or far away from you. But since we're all connected through social media, as if it's always happening somewhere close, somewhere around the corner, and this bipolarity, it takes a lot of strength. It takes a lot of energy out of you simply to combine these two in your life, in your everyday life.
I imagine it to be, or let's say, it may be very easy to compromise on your own beliefs when the surroundings are comfortable. Like, as you said, you have a nice apartment, you've got food, you probably can go shopping, whatever, and live in a big city. Moscow is comfortable. And then to still not maybe like lose sight of reality in a way. Because it's very, as I said, very easy to let go of one's beliefs if the incentives are so strong. And that's quite the act to keep facing reality, despite it being much more comfortable not to. And I guess that's also a reason why, just in general, not only in Russia but also in other countries, things can get so bad before people realize how bad they are, because there's always a way to distract your attention, maybe, or to also a bit fool yourself into making it seem like it's better than it actually is.
Distraction is definitely one of the points, I suppose. It's not like they're trying to make Moscow comfortable for our distraction, but that's how it works. I mean, the epitome of it, I remember there is a good book by Mikhail Yampolsky, a Russian culturologist, and he remembered the times when our most prominent theatrical director, Kirill Serebrennikov, when he was under house arrest for false accusations, and he was still staging new performances, even in Bolshoi theater, like being under house arrest. And like the epitome of it, when there is the grand premiere of his new ballet or performance in Bolshoi, and like people from the Kremlin are in the audience and they have taken the best seats, and they're watching the first demonstration of the performance by the director, which are now under house arrest for false accusations, because this is how the system works. And when you understand, right? I mean,
Yes. In a way, if you could die by irony, that's it, kind of.
it is, and it's just, well, it's all interconnected, and the closeness of these two parallel realities. This is when you kind of start feeling sick. Yeah, how they coexist together.
Yes, because it's so like fundamentally wrong in a way.
It is. It's
like
like
it's a big lie. Yeah. Oof. So you mentioned that many things changed in 2021.
Yeah.
And also what happened to your close friend.
Yeah.
How is she doing, by the way?
Well, we're all waiting for April, when it will be a year already since she's under house arrest, and
which means she cannot leave the house at all, like not even go grocery shopping.
They give them 2 hours in the morning, like starting from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. This is when they have like a daily walk.
Yeah.
but that's it.
How do they control that? Like, is there a police station in front of the building? Or
no, they have bracelets on their legs.
No shit. No.
Yeah.
Wow. That's like a real prisoner, actually.
It is. And if she's late, even for a couple of minutes, I don't know, if it's raining and she's just a bit late to get back home till 10 a.m., there will be a police car rushing to her house. I mean, she's that kind of a criminal to be late for a couple of minutes. And they will check why was she late.
Is it? Yeah. One more question. Did she get expelled from university, or is she still able to study?
She's still able to study. She skips her academic year, which was the last one. So she was a senior, and she was about to write her bachelor paper and to graduate. But her graduation is kind of prolonged for now, and now she's not able to study or work since she's not allowed to use internet. And
also no internet for her.
No internet.
How do you stay in contact with her? Through Telegram? Or how is it possible then to have any social interaction during that year?
Well, she's not staying alone. She's staying with her boyfriend for now. That's her husband. And basically 3 of 4 of those editors have married under home arrest, because if you have like an official husband or a wife, they're able to be on trials. And that was basically the measure they have taken with their boyfriends or girlfriends.
Yes.
Yeah, they kind of speed up.
What kind of story is that to tell your child? Like, do you know how mom and dad got married?
Well, how they've met, and they and now they're like inseparable. They are under the same roof, literally 24/7. And we majorly stay in touch with the help of her husband.
All right.
And he tells us how is she, and he tells us when we can come visit or when it is not the best time to come visit. And of course, mentally, it is incredibly challenging for them, especially in terms of identification. I mean, they are political prisoners, as the actual political prisoners in prisons, but they are in their houses, in their homes, and they are like in relatively comfortable circumstances. So for them, it is even difficult to state themselves as political prisoners because, like, well, guys, you stay in your homes, you're even allowed to walk. Like, what else you
Yes.
can ask for? Yeah, but actually, well, we may not forget that this is like political hostility towards them, and the worst part of it is that we don't know when and how it's gonna end, because they already prolonged it to the maximum term, like 1 year of house arrest is max, and then it should be somehow decided, and there are already hundreds of those interpretations, official interpretations of their case. There are hundreds of books, of social media posts, etc. So they're like gathering information to somehow turn it into a real trial, which of course is, yeah, it has no grounds, but they're trying to collect some information.
Yeah. And then
And
to
we don't
have
know
a
what.
real trial, as in to actually send her to prison or to prolong the house arrest.
Well, yeah, the thing is that we don't know what happens in April. We only hope that they will release them immediately and say sorry and let them go. But there is always a chance that they won't. And of course, these guys are so tired of this state when they don't know what to expect, as if their life is on a pause button, and they are not able to plan anything. They don't know when it's going to end. They just have to wait, and this is an incredible and tough experience, especially for young minds full of energy and looking forward for the best years of their life, ready to travel and to graduate and to work and to research. And for them, well, of course, this is a very weakening measure. And we're trying to be as good friends as we can be, even though there are many new things we realized in terms of how our communication have changed. Um, there are small things in the air when you are with them, and you're very careful about when you talk about yourself, as if you don't want them to know how is it to live a normal life, to be able to walk freely and to go out and to work and study, as if it will offend them. But they immediately feel when you try to be extra careful with your words, and this makes them even more anxious and irritable, let's say. There are many, many small things when you are trying to be as supportive and careful as possible, but end up irritating them even more because they lack external experience, they lack news, they lack some other opinions, and they lack the actual feeling that life goes on and people still do things and enjoy their freedom, and there is still like hope and life. And we are one of small, let's say, windows into outer world for them. And of course, we run out of topics. And of course, we run out of questions. And of course, questions like, how are you feeling? And what do you think will happen? And etc. Well, of course, they have become like very triggering for them.
I mean, I get also because those might be the main two questions your friend is asking herself all the time.
Of course, yeah, and above all, they were interrogated literally a few times a week for a month and for a month, and they had to travel to one of the prosecutive committees in Moscow like every day and undergo interrogations. about themselves, and now they have a series of trials. So it's not like they simply put bracelets on their legs and left them to be. They're still like picking them up and taking them to courts and to interrogative committees, and it is weakening them too. After trials, I know that I better not talk to my friend for at least a couple of days because she will be like exhausted. And these trials, they always give like this glimpse of hope. Well, what if, like, imagine for a second, what if this judge, what if she says something actually human to them, and what if she stops this, because she has the power, she still has, she can do it any moment, and there is still hope, even though they all know it's meaningless and they're all bought, and justice system doesn't work in Russia. But they can't help but to hope that this time she may be, well, it's usually she may be human. But every time she simply repeats the words of the previous judge, and they're traveling back to their homes. And this is this glimpse of false hope is literally the worst thing that they keep doing to them while they are awaiting the real trial in April. And of course, same goes for us.
Yes. I also, I guess the reason why a judge, even though she has the power to, let's say, also to speak the truth in a way, she's also bound by, I guess, some kind of internal pressure, because if she says something which is advantageous to your friend, then she might get in trouble in her job or career or whatever. I guess in a way the system is broken, as you said, and also in this kind of way that people are afraid to be too much in any kind of way associated with the bad thing, because you could always pinpoint that as damaging to the life, the career, whatever. So it's more comfortable to stay ignorant and just to repeat the words of the previous judge, because you won't get into trouble if you do. Which is and then the thing about the false hope, yes.
I know, yeah. We discussed...
It kind of drains you, right? It kind of drains your emotions and your also. I don't want to get too depressed, but if it like this draining is also affecting your, I guess, your whole way, or not way, your will to live, to enjoy life, to look out for the future, to make plans, because you always feel like there is no way you can, because even if you have hope, even if it could be, even if it could change, it just doesn't. It's like, I haven't read the book in ages, but do you know the Process by Kafka?
Sure, yeah.
It kind of, and when you described the situation to me, it kind of sounded like that. You always have this lingering thing, and something is there and something is going wrong, and you did something wrong, whatever. And then as soon as you want to get more clear on it, or as soon as you want to hope for a solution to end this, it just never happens.
Yeah, and of course it affects your very ability to enjoy life as it is, and to have a brighter outlook on the future. That's correct. It's like meeting a dementor or something, which are, if you remember, were
that's draining, tools. Like the just the very picture of draining, dementor.
Yeah. And as you remember, they were the guards of the regime, let's say.
Yes. Oh wow.
I mean, they were the actual tools to preserve it, and they were actually like they were working for the safety of the
Yes.
people, but but their means were questionable.
Wow, you just made me think about Harry Potter in a whole new way.
Oh, yeah, we keep recalling Harry Potter on many levels, and especially since many people rewatch it on
Yes.
New Year holidays. And for now we are, we actually feel as if we are somewhere around fifth or sixth book, and we have the total comeback of Voldemort in our life, and this huge dark mark is in the sky, and we even have our own boy who lived, even though he's imprisoned. And but the sense is that something terrible has come back. I mean,
Yes.
since the Soviet Union, the same attitude towards people, the same relentlessness towards the opponents, the same mm, the same rhetoric, the same
Mm.
fear of any anything other, anything different.
And
Yeah, this is definitely it. This is something which was said to be somewhere, lying down, waiting for its chance to be back, and now it's back, like
now,
officially,
yes,
like
to like
everyone knows.
reemerge, like
Yeah,
Voldemort.
yeah, and it has many Horcruxes,
Yes.
and we will have to, yeah, to wait a lot for a long time for them to disappear.
Yes. So, I mean, that's the perfect segue to the other thing you told me when we spoke a few days ago, I guess. Because, well, first of all, as we planned the first recording of the podcast, we actually had some other topics we wanted to discuss. And some of them, like one big topic, we decided not to discuss, also for your own safety, because many things have changed during or over or before New Year. And
In December, right?
so one of the things you told me is that because you just mentioned the Soviet Union, is that the authorities have closed a very distinct, like a very certain organization. Maybe you could tell me more about that.
Yeah, it's not like we're not used to NGOs and international organizations shut down, and media as well, but that one was a very particular one. It's about Memorial International. That's the organization found, if I'm not mistaken, the inventor of the atomic bomb, and who then turned into civil rights defender, one of the first ones in the Soviet Union. So he founded Memorial International, which deals with the past, with the memories of the atrocities of the Soviet Union towards its own people. I mean, the oppressions, I mean, Stalin's Great Terror in the 30s, and the Gulag system, and the labor camps.
Could we maybe speak a little more about those atrocities? Because I know many people who, especially in left-leaning circles, of course, and also many members of the Antifa, that really glorify Stalin, for example. So I sometimes through Instagram I see some posts and I'm just like, this is just has to be a joke, but it's not. And that there is, for many people, this kind of, how to say, a very sweet like the Soviet Union is for some people like a very sweet memory, especially if you have one ideological way of thinking. So could you maybe get into the history of that, like of those atrocities that should be remembered?
Yeah, of course. Well, and same here. I mean, for instance, for my grandparents, Stalin is still a figure that meant a better life and still means a better life. And like, yeah, that's a huge topic. I'm just trying to find better words. Like, basically, we can boldly put Stalin and Hitler on the same shelf. I guess so.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it is like the most evil figure in Russian history, which is a horror book, and that's like the worst page of it.
Also, just by measuring by deaths, I think Stalin is even worse than Hitler. I saw some graphs sometimes, and I didn't know that.
It may be true, and no wonder. And like their means were quite similar, and their scale was quite similar. And as for our generation, Stalin is like literally the most evil persona in Russian history. And the comeback of Stalin is like the actual comeback of like the most terrible part of Soviet and Russian history. While for, let's say, our grandparents, who, let's say, were born after the war or maybe during the war, well, they still were born in the time of Stalin. And their childhood, no matter how poor and how hungry it was still their childhood and their youth that they have spent under his ruling. So they have this outlook, a brighter outlook on his name, because they remember themselves as kids, as youngsters, and of course there is always, grass is always greener, etc. When you're a kid.
And also, I guess your grandparents, I presume, were not connected to or like themselves the ones who were affected by the things Stalin did, or like you probably didn't have relatives that got thrown into those gulags.
Yeah, as far as I know, my family was not. Yeah, but it still needs some research. It's just that there are very polar views on Stalin and on what he has done. And when we see the monuments of Stalin reappearing in Russia, that's like,
oh, is that so? Like they're
yeah,
as in rebuilding monuments.
Sometimes they do. And whenever we hear it, we're like, well, again, this is like as if, Harry Potter comes to life.
Yes.
It's like literally the proclamation of the most evil part of our past, of our collective past, trying to find way into the present. And
so would it then be like just to compare? Would it be like Germany putting up Hitler statues again, and my grandparents being like, "Oh, he wasn't that bad. I had a good childhood."
Exactly.
Wow.
And can you imagine like something like that? Anything like that? And can you imagine that? Well, yeah, we can actually prolong this comparison because that's a good one. Yeah, I mean, yeah, and of course, you can definitely read about like the numbers and the labor camps and who, like, what kind of people were sent to those labor camps, like the most intelligent and bold people who were definitely not prepared for
the most dangerous ones, also, because the most intelligent, bold,
who were not prepared for such harsh labor, and of course.
Yes.
millions of them died. And there is this famous quote of a Russian Soviet writer, a good friend of Brodsky, who emigrated as well. And his quote is like, "We endlessly criticize Comrade Stalin, and of course for the cause, and yet I want to ask, who wrote the 4 million denunciations?" And that is like a very good quote, because like people were denouncing each other.
Yes.
People were writing about each other secretly. That was the easiest way to get a better apartment. You want, address of your roommate. You simply write and denounce a letter on her,
Yes.
and
Or to get ahead in your career, you just denounce your
and it's
competitor.
That was a quick way to upgrade your living conditions. Like, honestly, that was the easiest way. When they're gone, your roommates are gone, you have like a better room for yourself.
Yes.
And no one will check twice if they said something, or if they were actually planning to do something. Like us in Russia now, there were no rules. There were no like actual connections between the cause and the punishment. The punishment was as severe as it could be, because it was targeting not only one person and what he or she allegedly has done. It was targeting everyone, and that's why Soviet Union in the 30s was the country of fear, of paralyzing fear that something will happen. Yeah.
Also, the
I'm
denunciations. Now, I just had a thought. I hope I'm not repeating myself, but if you denunciate somebody, and then, because you said there were no, it was not really, they weren't really figuring out whether it is actually true that they plotted something, for example. But then in this kind of paralyzed mindset, it is very easy to say that if, for example, you get denounced by somebody, and then I say, wait, we should see whether that's actually true, then all these paralyzed people are like, oh, you are in it. You want to protect them. You are in some way or another guilty of something. So and then I don't know why that is. Maybe it's like people do not collectively focus on figuring out what's true, but rather on like those power dynamics, and not getting into trouble. But then this in this kind of mindset, it's completely logical to write denunciations and to not figure out whether they are actually true, just to write them, because
of course. And that's how, I guess, deep down human psyche works. And I mean, that regime based on fear, it was dealing with the worst in people. Yeah, I think so. And as for my grandma, who is still recalling Stalin as like literally the best ruler in Russia, she is still sometimes scared to discuss something on the phone. And she's like, well, we better leave it when you come to me and visit me, and this is when we talk. I mean, how it still exists, right? She's still scared to discuss something because people were super scared of anything, of writing, of talking on the phone or anything. I mean, no phone at that time.
Okay.
Yeah, but she doesn't connect her inner fear of communicating something to the figure of Stalin, whom she praises. That's interesting.
That is very interesting. So in a way, it did not, like, of course she was impacted by the whole culture, let's say, or the whole mindset, but then not to for oneself to just realize that there's something wrong, that I am fearful of speaking to my granddaughter about stuff. Like that's just normal, or so it seems. Yeah.
Yeah, and this connection between the cause and the consequence, this is something which is being interrupted and unwired, not working in Russia till now. I mean, people are getting poorer, people are not satisfied with the way they live, people are not satisfied with anything, but many of them still do not connect it to the 20 year regime of one person.
Yes, but then, if you would connect it, then you would realize something. You probably realize something that is not advantageous for you.
Yeah.
Because it's like a hard, bad truth, and then you would realize something is wrong, and then you would have probably like the conscious. Yes, you're right. You would have to face the choice between going the right but hard path or the wrong but comfortable one. And if you don't, if you just stop yourself from realizing or connecting the dots, thinking for yourself, then you'd never have to face that choice. You can just like live the day.
Yeah, exactly. And getting back to Memorial International,
yes,
just a couple of words. It's that's something which has happened and marked the end of 2021 to us, and that was symbolically devastating. Even though it's as if we wouldn't be surprised by anything by now, but they decided to shut down Memorial International, which was basically the first human rights group in Soviet Union and then in Russia, like the most respected one. And it dealt with the past and with the memories of those repressed by the regime. They were reinstating their names and doing a lot with the archives so that people would find their relatives or friends and would understand what exactly happened to them. They were inventing many ways to speak about it, and they were constantly resurfacing this topic in the collective agenda, because this is exactly that kind of the past one should not forget in order not to repeat it in the future.
Yes.
And as you see, this connection between contemporary Russia and Soviet Union is way too strong, and those people who are in power now, they are the actual like they actually took over after Soviet Union officials. And I mean, Putin himself is from KGB, so like he is the actual person from the system,
and he knows the logic behind the system.
knows the logic, and for them, apparently, it became very important to care about the past of their collective past as of the system. And Memorial International was constantly underlining that was not very good, that was not right, and millions of people died. So they shut it down and say that it was blackening the memory of the Soviet Union, and therefore and therefore they proclaim that they are like ready for a full comeback back to the Soviet Union and to its measures. And for us, it was like, whoa, now they deal with the past. They kind of left us with no future. They have dealt successfully with the present. And now they decided in that very year, devastating year, to deal with the past on one of the on one of those days when everyone hopes for the best before the new year, since it was close to the end of December.
I mean, before we get more into the actual, like the organization and stuff behind that, maybe you could shortly refer on because when you told me about that, you said it had a distinguished, let's say, malevolence behind it to close the organization on or before New Year, also because New Year is a very important celebration in Russia. So maybe we could just kind of sort this out culturally, what the symbolic impact of that was.
Yeah, for many it was devastating because it happened, the last glimpse of that literally the worst year we've had so far. But the other point is that New Year's celebration is really long in Russia. It lasts for, it still lasts today, so it lasts for at least 10 days. And people are resting and going on vacations and travel, etc.
So it's from the 31st of December until what's the period?
10th of
All
January.
right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and of course, even though people were shocked when they heard the news, those who were making this decision, they knew that, it won't take long. People will get preoccupied with New Year fuzz and celebrations, presents, and they will easily forget it.
Yes.
Simply because it's not that moment of the year when you are ready for political action. You just want to have a long-awaited rest and to renew and to get into the new year like anew, fully rested and recovered and hoping for a brighter future. And of course they did a lot of things in December. They proclaimed many people foreign agents. They shut down the memorial. They made an additional crackdown on Navalny supporters. Like they were trying to achieve their KPI annual one in December, simply because they knew that in December you can do anything.
Yes.
In New Year, people will forget. Well, not forget, but they will have no energy at all to do something about it. And
That's so. I mean, if you would talk about psychological warfare, this is a brilliant move because
it is.
you have, on one hand, the realization of what is actually going on is devastating, but the incentive to preoccupy yourself with beautiful, enjoyable things is so high because it is during exactly that period of immense celebration. New Year, new hope, you're meeting your friends, your relatives, you're having a good time, you don't want to spoil that. So it is kind of like, I picture it to people get even more inclined not to think about it and not to remember it.
Yeah, even though this last thing that was done was literally like, it took the breath out of our lungs. And if we continue that comparison, it's like, as well, if there is an organization which is enlightening people about the atrocities of Nazi regime, and if you can imagine that it is just shut down because it is blackening the memory of it, well, that
because
would be
memory was so great.
yeah. Well,
that's the logic, right? The memory was great. It was a great time, great system, amazing, and now you're spoiling it because you're portraying the history of the victims.
Yeah, and they justified the everything, the good and the bad, and therefore we may, I guess, foresee a total comeback of the Soviet Union in the future, and for many, like the actual shutdowns of something, which deals with the present, like NGOs and media, was not that powerful and was not that was not that
impactful also?
Yeah, as
symbolic.
Yeah, symbolically, that was a very charged move they have made, and yeah, and this is something. But you know what? Since we started to talk about the New Year, um, of course, there are New Year addresses made by heads of state. And of course, for many years now, many people refuse to watch President Putin on their TV screens in the new year simply because, well, we just hate to see him and hate what he has to say. And for us, he is in many ways a symbol of everything which happens in Russia for now. He impersonalizes the regime in himself, and of course, this is the last thing you want to hear or see when you're in this magical transition to.
Yes.
Yeah. And 2 years ago, my friend decided that she is not ready to watch him. That was 2019, and that was the year of huge protests in Moscow, and many people were arrested. Like, she definitely didn't want to see Putin on her TV screen, and she decided to make an alternative address, New Year address, with her friends and with journalists and with the heads of Russian NGOs, and they decided to call it the address of a man, and they were discussing in this 5-minute address what a man needs, like love and care and inspiration and beauty. And that was like an antidote to the speech the president, the Kremlin, usually says to its people. And we were watching this address of a man, or a human address. We can translate it in a different way. For since 2019, and this year we were watching it too. This year, my friend didn't have enough energy and time to make her own. But the idea was so great that other people took it, and this year it was the address mainly of those journalists proclaimed foreign agents, and the again, the presidents of NGOs who were ruled out of Russia or shut down as memorial. And that was very, I mean, it was still, regardless, it was still the most inspiring thing I could watch that night.
Yes.
And yeah, and it gives us so much power that we have this alternative speech for ourselves that we can share with friends and with parents, just to give everyone a choice in the country where choices are getting eliminated every day and every month. We still have an alternative address to greet the new year, and this is something we really cherish and we really enjoy.
Also because you don't feel, or you feel probably less alone because you share it and you all watch it, and it's like, we relate together to this. So it's not only you or your friend, but it's more than some people. Yeah.
And this is a very beautiful idea and a beautiful implementation, that people gather together and they record their own, or they watch this alternative address of with the right words and with the right attitudes and with truth. And this is something you have to greet the new year, definitely, with truth in the first place.
Yes. Oh, is there a place where one can watch those? I mean, I don't understand Russian, but just in case.
They are on YouTube, and maybe they have subtitles. If they don't, then I will make them. Then I
that
will
would be so great.
install them. Yeah, they're beautiful.
So just let us remember that you give me the link, and then I will try to share it.
Sure, of course.
Great.
Yeah.
Let's do that. Okay, wait. We got to this through New Year, what New Year symbolizes in Russia. Also, you don't really celebrate Christmas, do you? It's
Christmas.
rather.
Oh, actually, it's today. Orthodox Christmas is today.
Oh, Merry Christmas.
Yeah, for us, Christmas is more a religious holiday, and it is widely celebrated, but only by religious people, I guess. Um, as for the New Year, well, this is definitely the biggest holiday in Russia, the one which unites the whole country and which is like widely celebrated everywhere, which has a lot of like symbols around it. Yeah.
Is there a bigger one than New Year in Russia, like a holiday?
I don't think so. Well, Russian authorities are trying to make the Victory Day as big as the New Year.
What's the Victory Day?
9th of May. The Victory Day, the victory in the Second World War.
Okay.
Yeah, for them it is very, very important to stick to that memory because, well, that was like the grand victory, and Russia was ahead of it. And
yes, good Stalin.
Yeah, and you see, like that. I guess they missed the times when it was all black and white. You know, when in this victory situation, Russia was like at its brightest, at its most noble and kind and powerful position of the Soviet Union. But yeah, and I guess
also internally, I guess, because then you could say we just defeated the bad guy.
Everywhere. We liberated the world. I mean,
Yeah.
the rhetoric comes to that extent that we liberated the whole world in Europe, and we like sacrificed a lot, but we've made it, and that is, I mean, from the day of tragedy and from the day of memory. It became like a victory day, which is celebrated aggressively. And that is, well, the main argument around it. That it is not, of course, it should be celebrated, but it should be celebrated in an entirely different way. It should be the day of a tragic memory, but it shouldn't be under the slogan that we can repeat it or I mean, there are many very aggressive war-like rhetoric around it. We made it, and we'll do it again, etc., etc. And tanks are,
But how again? Like if they say we do it again, how? Like you will free the world again from.
Yeah. It's like we are so powerful and ready that if we are being called, we will answer to this call and we will do it again. It is a huge lie. But so for many, it may be powerful and that's, the whole other topic and how they instill it in children in schools, how they dress them up and make them march. And, there is like the whole huge culture around it with songs and movies and what should have been a powerful memory celebration turned into like a circus. I don't know, a very frightening one. Carnival, well, more of a carnival, let's say.
But who is the new? Because back then, like if you say when World War II, the victory, you had the bad guy, but who is the new bad guy then, or what call they have to answer to save the world?
That's just a huge metaphor of.
Oh, okay, just for anything. For America, probably. For
Well, Soviet Union
Nawalny.
was. Yeah. Soviet Union was powerful.
Yeah.
Russia lacks power, like in every respect, and of course, Russia and Russian authorities are still riding the coattails of Soviet Union anywhere they can, and the Victory Day is the hallmark of this. Um, and there are many uh, uh, like there are many criminal charges that may rise against from misinterpretation of Soviet victory. There are many, I don't know, propagandistic movies still being shot. Like there is the whole propaganda machine working, and Victory Day and like the whole Second World War is still the basement of it, like the basic event and the basic. Well, it gives sense to everything above it because, well, you cannot discuss it in any way rather than the official one.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, if you ban a organization like this one, with the reason being that it blackens the memory of the Soviet Union, it's kind of it's not stupid or illogical to presume that there could also be speech laws in the future. Like if you criticize the Soviet Union, or just not even criticize. I mean, as far as I understood, that what the organization did was just gather stories that happened. So you're not even, so you're not even going so bold as to say, of course it implies that, but it's not like they did anything in a way willfully political with that. They just tried to document what happened, and what happened is what happened. But then at one point, if you have this kind of logic creeping in that it blackens the memory, and it should not be documented like reality, truth, then I presume that there will be some kind of speech laws in Russia at some point, that you are not allowed to say anything bad about the Soviet Union.
Yeah, and there are still well, there are some kind of laws already implemented concerning the way we talk, and we don't talk about Soviet Union.
Oh, there are? What kind of laws?
There are, and I don't remember exactly the content of them, but yeah, I guess I'll get back to you later on that. But as far as I remember, wait a second. There is a law which denies to, let's say, deny the victorious role of the Soviet Union in the Second World War. There are a pack of laws which deny any mentions or references to the Nazi regime. So let's say comparing Stalin to Hitler is like officially forbidden.
And you just did that. We just did that.
Oops. Unhelped.
But how? This is incredible. That's some kind of speech law already there. To forbid the comparison.
Yeah. Well,
wow.
And I mean, you would think, why would they even try to care as much
If it wasn't
about
true,
the past.
haha.
Yeah, and about the past. I mean, past is past, and
Yeah.
like, why wouldn't they concentrate on restricting the present? But it feels like they're so secure in the present already that the past is now of their concern, because they know that their roots are in there, and now they care about it even more.
Also, because I think if you, well, let's say, if you dissolve the memory of, because what happened, those atrocities by the Soviet Union were government atrocities. So there was a certain level of government overreach that made people suffer. And if you blacken the memory of that, you could, it kind of, I think it will also justify even more government overreach in the future now, because if you don't have this memory of what could happen, or that people need to stay awake, they have to be attentive, they have to think, to act and whatever, to not let this happen because it happened already. If you just make them forget that, it gets easier to justify any kind of I don't know, new law, new rule, another organization that gets shut down because it's blackening some kind of somehow glorious memory. So I think that it's not only about, or let's say, like, changing the memory or the past is enabling the future. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's absolutely, yeah. And that was the total point of what has happened, I suppose.
So, okay, because we're already almost like 2 hours in.
Wow.
Wow. Yes.
Time flies fast.
Time does. And
your impressions.
And it's so nice because I mean, the listeners do not know what we have already talked about, but I feel like every time we speak, it's just like a whole adventure. I never know where we end up, but it's always, I feel much more knowledgeable and intelligent when we do. So that's much appreciated. You're a great conversation partner.
You too.
Thank you. So if we, just for the slow closing, but I would for that be interested in, because now we spoke about the future, and that the Soviet Union, the mentality, the logic, the government overreach could or is already starting to happen again. If we could just speak about your outlook for the country, like in what way, because the same thing never happens twice, right? So the same old Soviet Union that happened a few centuries ago will not happen again, but in a different way. And then also for like your own thoughts about what you plan to do in Russia or not. Yeah.
Yeah, well, Soviet Union, we may say that it happened like exactly a century ago, so the memory is still very much alive, and it's getting more and more alive. Of course, there is no, let's say, communistic or socialistic ideology for now, and that aspect of it will not be repeated. The circumstances people might find themselves in, they may be very, very close to what we know from the history books. So, yeah, as for me, I'm thinking that getting a second citizenship is a very good idea, and that not sticking to one Russian passport is is a wise thing to do, and I'm very like internationally oriented myself, and I'm interested in different cultures, and I cherish the English language. So for me,
I mean,
would
you're an amazing English speaker.
thank you, and likewise, Isabel.
Thank you. I mean, I would mistake you for a local in America or the UK, I guess.
That's a huge compliment, and thank you. I try to work on that, and it gives me a lot of power and hope. I mean, English language as it is. So I am thinking about working abroad and studying abroad, and maybe settling my life abroad. Um, yeah, and I think about it with huge optimism and eagerness. I don't feel like I'm fleeing my country. I don't feel like I am desperate emigrate. No, I feel like the world is still open to me, and maybe even if Russia was not undergoing what it is undergoing right now, I would still choose to live somewhere else simply because I'm that interested in the world. But
so it's not just let's say, it's not only a forced choice. So you're not only thinking about leaving the country, working abroad because of the situation. It's also your own personal interest anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And but what I am forced to do is that I'm forced to act quickly because, well, as I see, every year for now counts, and what gives you motivation in this lifetime choices? Well, political regime and what they do to even to your like closest people.
Yes.
This keeps reminding you that time may be up, and it's better to hurry up with your decisions and with your um, ideas for the future, because you may find yourself in a situation when it is way too late, and when it is really like a running away situation, which I wouldn't really like to find myself in.
No.
Yeah. And
I wouldn't wish that for you either.
yeah. So I think that this year, 2022, will be, I hope it will be a groundbreaking year for me personally, and I will find a new start somewhere else. But we'll see. We'll see. I look in the future with a lot of hope. I'm just not really sure where this future is going to be.
Yeah. Is it because yes, on one hand, the situation is quite dire, and I think I guess many people who were not inclined to work abroad are now also thinking about that, just because they don't want to live a life like that, especially with the current outlook and the missing of a counter figure, let's say.
And especially if they're young, because you don't want to spend literally the best, like the most energetic years of your life under dictatorship. It's just not right.
Yes. Though I just imagine it, because again, on the other hand, it's still your home country. It's your culture. It's where you grew up in. It's so if I would be in your place, I don't know, maybe it's also something like false hope, but this feeling like I don't know whether I can really go, whether I should, is there something more to do? Did I really do anything I could? or if I leave and let's say all the good people leave, all the people who are willing to see what's actually going on, willing just to see the truth, what happens then to the country? Oh, yeah, like, do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
this.
of course. Yeah, and this is something I guess everyone ethically, is being ethically challenged when is being faced to a decision like this. But I find this not a selfish move. It's just, for me, it's about priorities. And I will not be of any help for Russia um, while I'm staying here um, and not feeling that my life is, it is back together.
Yeah.
And I hope that beautiful things can be done when people are happy with their own lives, when they are finally on like stable grounds and have the actual outlook for the brighter future and the energy to implement it. And this is when the miracle happens. As for now, the environment in Russia is just not that. mm, it's just not. It doesn't give us such a possibility to feel that way. And for me, I guess leaving Russia is the way to finally feel yourself safe and alive again. And as some time passes, and as I um, go on with my own life, this is when I will find a way to give back to my country as well, which I still um, love incredibly and cherish and adore, but it's just not the place for me for now.
Also, I guess leaving is also to escape the Dostoevsky situation you were
That's
speaking
right.
about in the beginning, because this kind of overarching, paralyzing, constant fear that you cannot really stop or figure out what's going on, find a solution for it, get it past you. This very immobilizing, paralyzing feeling,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
actually makes you, and in a way it makes you actually useless, because you can't think, you can't act, you're just there trying to survive.
Yeah.
So I think, and I told you before, I think despite this maybe feeling like, okay, I'm leaving something behind, I think what you're doing is the right decision, because once you have a clear mind, you can think, and also think, as you said, about just plans to actually make a good change that you were not able to think of while living in Russia over this under this kind of regime and constant fear.
Yeah. Would be interesting to feel yourself safe for once.
Yes.
Just for a change.
Yes. So, Sasha, I am so happy that I reached out to you last year. I'd have never guessed that we would sit here and record 2 hours of podcasting together.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you meet people at a young age, let's say, and then I don't think we had that many interactions during that festival, because it was a festival and there was always something going on. And then to reacquaint yourself, and then to actually see that there's something to that, is I'm very thankful for this. It's a great start into the new year. I also hope it will be inspiring and that you will figure out all the necessary things that you need and wish to figure out for yourself and for your future life. And I certainly hope that we do this again, because I think we're not running out of topics.
That's for sure. That's for sure. And thank you so much, dear Isabel, for inviting me and for your interest in Russia and in my own life and in what happens with us. It is really important, and I remember how I was glad to receive your message during the protests, that you actually cared and asked and wanted to learn more and wanted to know if I'm safe or not. And that is, these are like little things, but they warm our hearts like incredibly. And this gives us so much inspiration and such a greater outlook on life. And I hope that this conversation was not very depressive, but it's not like we get to choose about the topics. And I still try. I mean, I understand that many of these discussions may sound quite hopeless and like quite down in its mood, but there is still this, this New Year miracle which is happening, and there is still somehow an optimistic view on something which awaits us. So I hope that you may hear different moods from me, and that it was not that difficult or depressive to hear. I wouldn't want that, because this is not how I feel and how we feel, despite everything which has happened. And your attention and your support, they really, really mean a lot to me.
Thank you, Sasha. Thank you. I think you just to what you just said is, and I'm repeating myself, I guess, but again, I'm so amazed by you being able to, on one hand, face reality, and on the other hand, not stop acting for yourself, which is, for me, like, that is already something very hopeful, or people can be hopeful about. And there, yes, of course, there is also this part which is kind of depressing, but then the way you manage it is truly inspiring. And I am not being cheesy there. I mean that.
Thank you. We try.
All right, Sasha. Then we will talk soon. And take care.
So. Yeah, looking forward to it. Thank you. You too.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, we did it.
Wow.
Oh my God.
2 hours. They flew.
Oh, yes. I did not want to wrap this up, but I was feeling kind of tired. And I thought that you better stop before, like, stop when it's good.
Of course, yeah.
So, and I meant that I really hope we can continue that. Also, just maybe updating if there's some new developments.
Sure, and maybe you would think about cutting it in two, because like 2 hours, it's definitely maybe long and and difficult to listen to.
Yeah, maybe I will make maybe like mini clips.
Maybe
topic
because
related.
we touched on many topics at once, and yeah, this may work like, a set of episodes. Maybe
Mm.
it will be a bit better rather than, the whole cut. But you'll see for yourself.
Yeah, no, but that's a good idea. That's a good idea. I also we spoke about Joe Rogan, and it's great to have him talk for 4 hours. But then again, sometimes I'm very happy about those mini clips that are only 20 minutes
Yeah,
long.
yeah.
Because not everybody has the time to listen for so long, and I guess
Of
the
course.
hurdle is a bit higher to actually do it if it's 2 hours. So yeah, I would definitely keep that in mind. Again, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. That was a great thing to do, really.
Yes. Oh, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, and we can definitely talk about something brighter and more hopeful next time. I
Yes.
mean, yeah, I will always get back. Don't worry, I will always get back to dictatorship and politics
No, you
because
see,
it surrounds everything.
I did not really think that I mean, the whole topic is depressing and it's sad, but it's a topic, and
Yeah,
it would be weird not to feel saddened either by
it's true.
experiencing it
Yeah,
or listening to it.
yeah.
That would be it just would be
That's
weird not to
that's
be.
that's complex. Like that's a post-Soviet, I guess, complex or insecurity of like post-Soviet people. Like, am I not troubling you with my dictatorship talks?
Oh,
I'm
is
sorry.
it?
I'm sorry. I'm getting political again. It's just my
Oh,
country.
it's just. Oh, I didn't know. Why? Why is that so? Oh,
I guess it's just that when you talk to someone from the States or Canada or Europe, like there are always like more like calmer and more optimistic topics to discuss. But since
mm,
your life is so interconnected with the regime, you always get back to it as to some kind of trauma. And
yeah.
this is like you keep you keep moving every conversation into that, and you even feel like guilty or
Oh,
embarrassing.
because it's destroying the
Sorry,
mood or
guys, but I'm gonna
something.
talk about Putin again, just the one last time. But I just can't help it because that's everyday life here.
Yes. And if it's like that, then there's nothing wrong in speaking about that. And I did not think, and I don't think the listeners will perceive it as that it was a very, no, I don't think they will perceive it as very, like, depressing. Of course, yes, because again, still is a sad topic. But there is no need for you to worry about that, is what I want to say.
Okay, I hope so.
Okay. Yes, sir.
You can actually use this piece too. I think it will be beautiful, when they show bloopers after a movie, and that would be just like the same, like, whoo, we've made it now.
Yeah.
How do they feel? Because they should be very depressed after those 2 hours.
That's a great idea. Yes, yes, yes. I will definitely
I
use
would
it.
keep it, yeah.
Yes. Alrighty, then I will get to work and try to also to figure out what kind of description I want to give that podcast, because there were just so many topics.
Yeah, I
And I
guess what
kind of
nice about is like the mentality of it, and maybe like the I mean, I guess it was all very interconnected with psychology. That's what I'm trying
mm,
to say. Like psychology behind everything, behind living in authoritative country,
mm,
behind like celebrating the Victory Day, behind well, there's always this symbolic psychological dimension to it, which
mm.
we're covering. And yeah, I guess it's more about mentality than the actual events. We talked more about the trauma rather than the events that caused it.
Mm. You see, now when we were speaking through Zoom before, I saw that you made notes, right? And now I just thought I should have done it like Sasha. I should have made notes.
I
So
kept, yeah, doing it. It's only for expressions because your vocabulary is very rich, and sometimes you say things which are like, oh, that's a good one. I want to remember it, and that's why I'm writing it down.
That's such a great thing to do. Really, I will keep this in mind, and one day you will also catch me writing notes. One day. Alrighty, then I will inform you when it is ready to launch. And yeah.
Yeah, and I will send you the link to the New Year address. And if it doesn't have subtitles, it won't really take me long to create them. And
that would be so amazing. Mm-hmm. Oh yes, yeah. This is great. I'm looking forward to this, really. Cool. Okay, thank you again.
Isabel, you're amazing. I just love talking to you.
Yes, me too. You are. No, you.
No, you. You have a great day. And
you too.
Yeah.
Have a good night, actually, right?
Thank you. Yeah.
All right, talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.